Today I'm speaking at the Gherkin for a conference of business owners. 60 business owners come together to discover how to buy a business successfully. I made more money the day I sold that business than I had in the previous 2.5 years. You could buy 10 businesses because you're not using your own cash. There's nothing holding anyone back from doing this. It depends upon your desire to actually make it happen. 25 years ago, 1999, I had a little publishing business. It was one of those businesses that makes a bit of money one month, makes a bit of a loss the next month. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Spent 6 days a week in the office, but not very much reward to show for it. And then someone came along and they said they'd like to buy the publishing business. And I never thought anyone would want to buy this business. It doesn't make very much money. Why would anyone want to buy it? And I made more money the day I sold that business than I had in the previous 2.5 years of working 6 days a week, incredibly hard at not earning any money in the business. So the sale of that business to another larger company opened my eyes to what is possible when you sell a business. Now, you might think that I should go out and do that again immediately. Well, it takes me a few goes to learn something and to realize that onto a good thing. So it took me several years before I realized that was really the strategy, where you can buy a business, combine it with another business, put the two together, and then sell it to someone else. So I fell into it completely by accident, but I've got to say that the high points of the last 25 years have always been the acquisitions and the exits. It's never been running the business, but I can do the deals. Generally, what you're looking for is a business that is somehow complementary to your own. That's the easiest type of business to buy because you already understand the business that you're buying. So I've got some clients who buy businesses that are completely different to their level of experience or their knowledge. And as a result, they've got two learning curves. They've got the learning curve of how to own that type of business, and they've got the learning curve of buying the business. Where if you went out and you bought a business similar to yours, maybe a competitor in your area or a similar business in a different area, so you expanded geographically by buying other businesses, then you could double the size of your business in the next 12 months. So if you've got plans for 2024, and I'm sure you will have if you're part of this group, you've got big plans for 2024, you can double the size of your business in the next 12 months by buying another business. And I look for certain things. I look for businesses that can run without me being there. Because, like I said, I'm not a good operator, so I don't want to be there. I don't want to buy a job. I want to buy something that creates profit without me being there. So that's very, very important. I also look for businesses that have consistent profitability. So that's important. And businesses that do not depend upon the one person who owns it. Because if that person's gone, then is there really a business left behind? And then absolutely critically, I look for businesses, and this is really, really important, I look for businesses that I can buy without using my own money. Because it doesn't matter how much money you've got, if you use your own money to buy businesses, at some point you're going to run out. So if you can use other people's money and more sort of creative deal structures, so you don't have to use your own money, then you could buy one business, two businesses, you could buy 10 businesses because you're not using your own cash. So that's what I look for. So there's two ways of doing this. You can either use finance money, so money that you borrow. Very important though, if you use money that you borrow, you don't want to use your house as collateral. No one wants to put their house up as collateral for a loan. Typically though, if you go to your high street bank, you bank with Barclays or Lloyds, you go to them, that's what they'll say. They'll say, look, we'll lend you the money, but you need to give us your house as collateral. So you don't want to be doing that. The second thing that you don't want to be doing is signing personal guarantees. I'm sure over the years we've all signed personal guarantees. Sometimes we regret signing personal guarantees. You don't want to be signing personal guarantees. So you need to be giving some sort of collateral to the bank that is other than your own property, the house that you live in, and other than a personal guarantee from you, the individual. The other source of funds, quite interestingly, is quite often the owner of the business that you're buying. Now, I know that sounds a little strange the first time you hear it, but if you buy a business and you get the owner of the business to finance the acquisition for you, then they're effectively lending, in inverted commas, lending you the money, which means that you pay for the business over time out of the profits of the business. So it's saying to you, buy now, you pay later, just like a sofa. You buy now, you pay later. And you can pay later over a 3, 5, even a 10-year period. I've got one client who did a deal over 20 years. Now that is unusual. And that means that the business finances its own acquisition. Now, if the business finances its own acquisition, how many businesses could you buy? Well, the answer is, I guess, all of the ones that you want to buy. So in actual fact, there's nothing holding anyone back from doing this, because it doesn't depend upon how much money you've got, doesn't depend upon your personal finances, doesn't depend upon collateral in your property. It depends upon your desire to actually make it happen. Look, if you're serious about buying a business, let's do it properly. There's a link in the video description below. Click the link, watch the free training, and I'll show you how to buy a business successfully.
What advice have you got for people looking to enter into this market and use this as a strategy to scale up?
You've got to know what you're doing, because it's a legal process. You're signing legal documents, so you've got to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you can get yourself in hot water and make an expensive mistake. And as we know in business, every mistake is always expensive. There's no such thing as an inexpensive mistake in business. I've never set myself up as a guru or someone who's sort of perfect in every way. I'm far from that. I mean, I bought and sold over 65 businesses, and I bought some bad businesses, and I bought some amazing businesses. I've had some great exits and some not so great exits. So I've seen what works, what doesn't work. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong, so you need to make sure that you're getting the right advice from the right people on doing it properly, so you come out of it with the result that you want, which I guess is doubling, tripling, quadrupling the size of your existing business.
Have you got a particular business that you like to buy, or is there a particular business going into 2024 as you see as a hot opportunity?
Yeah, sure. So it's a great question. It's a question I get asked a lot. So people say to me, is this a good business, or is that a good business, or is this a good sector? Actually, that's what people say. Is this a good sector? Well, I say forget the sector. Think about the business. Is the business profitable? Can it run without you? And will it make money day in, day out, regardless of whether you are there or not? That's the real test of the business, of it being a business rather than a job. I always think that you should keep an open mind, because if you spotted a business that maybe is in a slightly different sector to yours and it makes money, it ticks all the boxes that we've just described, then if it makes you an extra 200, 300, 400, 500,000 a year, why wouldn't you do it? But if you see an opportunity, and 2024 is going to be an incredible year of opportunity, because we've got the tailwinds from the pandemic, we've got the high interest rates, the recessionary times, the cost of living, all of these things, and when you've got economic uncertainty, that is your opportunity. So if you're looking for opportunity, and I guess you would be as being part of this group, then the uncertainty that's around us right now could be your moment. And the greatest time to get started to think about buying a business is January, because that's when people come back from the Christmas holidays, the break, and they go, why am I in this business? Why do I have this? And our favorite type of person to buy a business from is someone retiring or around retirement age. They're the easiest deals to do. The number one reason for selling a business, by the way, is not money. Number one reason for selling a business is retirement. Number two reason for selling a business is ill health. The number three reason for selling a business is retirement and ill health, unfortunately, combined. So we're looking for motivated sellers. And if you're looking for motivated sellers, January is an amazing time to look for motivated sellers.
So do you look for one-off sales? Do you look for recurring revenue? Do you like a healthy mix of the two? Are you not bothered? Sure. Is it about cash flow? Recurring revenue has a huge amount of value, because you don't have to go out and get brand new customers every month. You've got money coming in every month regardless. Typically businesses are a mix, aren't they? A bit of recurring revenue and some one-off sales. The recurring revenue to you is probably the most valuable part, because if that business does £100,000 revenue a month, and you buy the business, next month it will do 100,000 revenue, and you know that 25,000 drops to the bottom line. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention this earlier. Always look for a business where you can pay yourself a deal fee. A deal fee is you being able to take some money out of the business the very day you buy it. So I've got a client who's just bought a manufacturing business, steel fabrication business in the Midlands, and she is a £2.5 million a year business, makes £485,000 a year profit, and she bought that business, and the only money she put into that deal was £2,500.
And she got the £2,500 straight back out the day she completed. She took out a £25,000 deal fee the day she completed, and she's paying herself £15,000 a month. It's pretty good, right? And that's her very first business acquisition. Now, if you've got business, and she had no business experience, she did something completely different that wasn't in business. So you guys have got business experience. If she can do it, you can do it.
I think the number one question on everybody's mind on that one, Jonathan, is why did the seller sell it to her?
They actually got paid £2.5 million for the business.
Yeah.
So it made no difference to them where the money came from, whether it came from Lloyd's or Barclays. It had £1.7 million in the bank that was surplus cash. And she used that as part of the payment for the business because it allowed the seller to get the very best tax rate on that £1.7 million. The balance, and then part of it was a refinance of the assets in the business, so the equipment and the machinery. And then the balance was deferred over a number of years, paid out of the profit of the business. So we call this a deal jigsaw. A deal jigsaw is where you take different funding mechanisms and you slot them all together so you can see the picture on the front of the jigsaw, which is the deal. I can tell you about deals that would make you think that is just not possible. You know, those are deals that happen to someone else, not to the people in this room. I've got deals where people have bought businesses. There's another manufacturing one I can give you an example of. He paid £2.8 million for this business in the northeast of England, and it's a £20 million a year steel fabrication business, making a 5% margin, so £1 million a year. So he paid £2.8 million for a business making £1 million a year. Now that's a good deal. That's a really good deal. Let me tell you what makes it an even better deal. He got the factory with it. And when he went and had the factory revalued after he owned it for 6 months, the factory valuation was £3.3 million. So now he's got a £3.3 million factory. He's got a business making £1 million a year. Now that was actually a year ago. That's not a new story. That's a year ago. A year later, his name's Jason. A year later, the turnover of that steel fabrication business has gone up to £38 million. The margin's gone up to 10%. I'll work it out for you, £3.8 million pre-tax profit. And how did that happen? Well, the owner of that business was holding it back. And this is quite an interesting thing. When you buy a business from a retiring owner, quite often they haven't put much effort into the business over the preceding few years because they just haven't got the energy. They don't really want to build it up. They want to wind it down, if anything. So by taking out the seller, putting in his own manager and saying to the staff, how do we build this business up? They make shopping trolleys and things like that. How do we build this business up? They've won new contracts. And when you win a new contract in that sector, it's not a £100,000 contract, it's a £2.5 million contract. So he was able to build the business up, and now he's got the start of, his goal is a 100 million revenue. Nice. That's the goal. It's so important to have the right lawyer on your team. So why don't you use mine? His name is John Andrews, and he will get your deal done. His details are on the screen. And you know what? We've all woken up one morning and saying, I hate my business. All of us have done it, some of us more recently than others perhaps. But we've woken up and we said, why do I do this? I hate this business. If someone came along and took the keys off me and I could just walk away from it, I would. And that's you were a motivated seller at that point. And there are people waking up feeling that way all the time. So those motivated sellers are out there. And let's just talk about invoice financing. Yeah. Invoice financing is where we take a loan using the debtor book, the people who owe the company money, within credit terms, not people who owe the company money from last year, but from last 30, 60, 90 days. And we borrow against that, sometimes as much as 80% of the debtor book, and we use that to fund the acquisition. Now you might think that I've come up with something new and novel and does this really work in the real world? Well, I haven't. I mean, this is the basis of private equity. And here we are in the City of London, surrounded by some of the largest private equity firms in the world, and they all do exactly what we're talking about here. They use invoice financing, they use asset financing, they use deferred consideration. They structure the deals in exactly the same way, but they do it with companies doing hundreds of millions of revenue, but we can do it with companies doing millions of revenue. Exactly the same strategies, proven to work, and used by all the private equity firms here in the city. Now, the key things when valuing a business in your head of what I would pay for this business is what is its worth to you. If you and I, Gary, looked at the same business, and what type of business are you in, Gary?
Commercial painting.
Commercial painting. So you look at a commercial painting business and you might see that they have a client list that you would very much like, or they have a geographical area that they cover that you want to move into. So there's some synergistic value for you. So you would say, well, I think this business to me is going to be worth about this, because I can see I've got some cost savings. I don't need 2 head offices. I can consolidate some of the team and all of those things. Don't need 2 bookkeepers, don't need 2 whatever, okay? Now, I would look at that business and I'd say, I don't really know very much about commercial painting. In fact, I don't know anything about commercial painting. It looks like an interesting business to me, but I'm not really bothered, because if I buy that one or the commercial cleaning company or the construction company, it doesn't really make any difference to me. So for me, the value is lower. So it really depends upon the angle that you're coming at. So some of you will see it as a higher value, some of you will see it as a lower value. My job, my role in our relationship as I see it, is to make sure you get the very, very best deal on the very, very best terms. And here is a saying, if you're taking notes, this might be something you might want to write down to look back on later. You can't buy a business that you can't finance. You need to be able to finance the acquisition. You can't buy a business that you can't finance. If you can't finance it, you can't buy it. It doesn't matter how much you want to pay for it or how much they want for it. If you can't finance it, you can't do it. So I go into every business with one thought in mind. The thought is, how can I buy this business for nothing?
Is it better to do an asset purchase or a share purchase?
It depends. How are you financing it?
Probably through the assets.
What sort of assets does the business have?
It has vending machines.
Vending machine, and they own the vending machines. Okay, all right. So you've got the company owns the vending machines, and you're going to put some finance against those assets. Use the assets as collateral for the finance. Use the finance to buy the company. Yes. Okay. So it has to be a share purchase. The reason why is because if it's an asset purchase, then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be saying, I want to go and buy these assets, and the asset lender would say, okay, we'll lend you 70%, you've got to put down 30%. If you're doing it the first way with the share purchase, then you're buying the company that already owns the assets, and you're refinancing the assets to provide you with the money to buy the company. So you don't need that 30% deposit. It's a little bit like when you buy a house, you put down your 20%, you get your 80% from the bank, and you've got to go and find the stamp duty and the deposit. However, if you're remortgaging the house that you already own, then they don't say, well, you need a deposit. Well, you already own it, right? You're just refinancing the property that you already own. So I have clients who are buying businesses that own commercial property that they are acquiring as part of the company purchase. I gave you an example with that factory in the northeast earlier, the £3.3 million factory. And what they're doing is they're creating an OpCo, operating company, and a PropCo, property company. So what's happening is, without a deposit and without having to pay stamp duty, they end up with a commercial property. They peel that out of the trading company, put it into the property company, and then they've got 2 sources of income. They've got the cash flow from the trading company that pays for the holidays and pays for all the nice stuff. And then they've got the property company that contains the commercial property that has the ongoing capital growth over time. So the property company is for the children. That's their inheritance, and the operating company pays for all the holidays and the nice stuff.
Okay, great. Let's give Jonathan a big round of applause,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Well done, my man. Thanks for coming.
What a group. They are going to absolutely smash it in 2024. See, if you can double, triple, quadruple the size of your business in just 12 months, then the sky is the limit. And these guys, they are going to make it happen.